welcome back, fellow jazz bums. Today we have Guido from Anna Dialogue joining us today. He has a great YouTube channel, which many of you will have subscribed to and seen before. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. We also have the Jazz Bums Discord. We'll drop an invite in the description below. We'll also link to Guido's channel in the link below as well. And we also live stream every Friday, so come and check out us there as well. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Felipe to get us started.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. So today, our guest, Guido, directly from Italy. Speaking of Anna Dialogue, one of the great hi-fi music channels, a channel that I personally follow from almost like from inception. And we wanted to talk to him for some time, and he talks about jazz, about Japanese things, about great things about hi-fi. And we thought it would be very nice to have him here today, and we're really pleased, and I hope we're going to have a great conversation today. Thank you so much, and welcome, Guido.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Felipe, Mike, and Chris for hosting me, for keeping me in this fantastic channel that you're building day by day. Congratulations, really.
Yeah, thank you so much. So to get us started, can you just maybe give us a little background on like how you got into music and hi-fi and the start of your channel?
Okay. A small question, but probably a long answer. Let's see.
That's great. Yeah.
Well, let's say that the beginning of everything is probably, as many people, I believe, comes from my family. Meaning that my mother is American. That's why I'm bilingual. Actually, I am mainly Italian. I was born and raised here in Italy, in Florence. So I have these two worlds inside me. And one important part was practically passed on to me from my mother, because she was there in the 60s and in 50s. Actually, she was a great Beatle fan. She went to the concerts. Actually, she managed to get her autographs, which I have here. I mean, she really transmitted that love for that kind of sound, mainly rock, pop, soul of the 50s, 60s. Then clearly she came over in Italy. And that was the end. Then I kicked in and fell in love slowly with the 70s, because that's probably my favorite era of all time, across many genres, we could say. Then fast forward, just starting to live on my own, even though I always listened to music in the house with the little stereo, with the things mainly my mother and father were buying. Not that much, actually, mainly Italian stuff or French stuff, but not stuff I was really interested in, except for that Americana, let's say. So when I started to live on my own at the university, things like that, I just started to slowly understand that crappy, disgusting Sony could have been upgraded somehow. And in fact, tweak by tweak, clearly I didn't have much money, so every little aspect was really an effort, economic effort, time consuming, even because at that time there wasn't internet, there wasn't that many sources. You had to buy these very expensive magazines, even in Italy, that were already like 10,000 lire, like 10, 12 euro, insane prices. So, but that was the main source of information. So slowly I understood that brands like, at that time, Panasonic, or I don't know, Philips or Sony, first of all, weren't the only ones, but actually weren't the best ones. Well, clearly in the past they had a great history, but we're talking about the 90s, where I had access mainly to mass-produced products. So I believe a lot of people had this almost shock when you start to understand that there's so many brands that they also make handmade products. So slowly, once again, a cable, something to treat the power, a better CD player, and things like that just made me realize how much things could change, how the music could change, how much I was enjoying it more. In fact, just to have a comment on jazz, I started to appreciate jazz clearly in a more mature phase of my life. I mean, it's not something you fell in love immediately. I mean, I think that's pretty rare. It doesn't happen immediately unless you're completely submerged in a jazz environment. Then maybe yes, but a
Hmm.
normal person, it's kind of rare, I think. And in fact, uh, that high fidelity probably is one of the reasons, beside clearly the artistry itself, that brought me close to that type of music, but also chamber music, where you start to really listen, feel the instruments, the dynamics, the timbre, all the different aspects that characterize the real instruments. Obviously, also voices, but as we all know, I mean, rock, pop, and things like that aren't usually recorded in the best way possible, in contrast with jazz and things like that. So that's probably the inception of everything.
So when you decided to start a YouTube channel, did
Hmm.
you have any intents or goals that you were trying to achieve, or was it experimental at first to kind of see how you could use this to help communicate with other enthusiasts? What would when you first started it? What were some of like kind of the first ideas and how you wanted to approach the channel?
Good question. Good question. Um, well, actually, I started in 19 of June in 2017, and actually, I was coming from, we could say, a few videos of Techmoan and also
Oh
Vinylize,
yeah, yeah.
which gave me this idea that I had a lot of experience, well, mainly passion, I would say. The experience, I had some, but it came more afterwards when I started to document, to do research. So I really wanted to share this because it is kind of a lonely type of hobby. I mean, or if you don't have your circle, your group of friends dedicated to that, they think you're crazy, probably spending that time and money on hi-fi components or things like that. So it was hard, at least that's my personal experience. So that, yes, was one of the big triggers to share. In fact, I called it Anna Dialogue, because I was hoping practically to have also a dialogue, clearly between me and the people who were hopefully going to follow myself. But I mean, nothing happened for months, not even one visualization, and I was almost ready to give everything up after only 3 videos, which I know it's insane. Now if I take a look at several channels that are trying to grow, I mean, three videos is nothing. I don't know why, but I was already demotivated. Well, instead, I did this video on cables. Oh boy. As soon as you talk about cables, the love and the hate jump in, and it skyrocket high immediately. And that was the start. And at that point, I mean, since there is a reaction, you just, it's almost like a drug. I mean, you can't stop. I mean, it's fun. It takes so much time to do things correctly, a lot of time. I'm sure you
Yeah.
guys know, even for editing. And if you really want to do things a little more nice than just turn on your webcam and use the mic of your computer, if you want to do things correctly, I mean, I don't script that much. Please stop me if I'm telling you things that you're not interesting, or
Oh,
your
no, no.
audience is not
No,
interested.
no, this is great. I love
Okay.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of people write almost everything, every single word they're gonna say, which I understand, but it's just impossible for me. I love the idea to just communicate what I have in my mind. I have block points, bullet points, and just from there talk. So that means also that actually not that much editing is going to be there. I mean, only when I pass from one point in another, and then I want to take a look at my notes, just to have an idea what's coming after. And at that point, I just have to do that very simple edit, but a little bit of the
I think
color,
that
the contrast.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just
No
to
problem.
your point about you having bullet points. I do feel like one of you're an effective communicator, and I think it's because you come across as like you're just having a conversation. You know where the conversation's going, but you're just kind of improvising almost, like just
Yes.
you know what you want to say, and you'll kind of work through it as in real time. And I think that that is a really fun way to, as a listener, to kind of digest what you're trying to communicate rather than just hear a script. So I think that is really effective.
Well, thank you. I hope so, because clearly there may be some so that's always a little bit annoying. Clearly,
Yeah.
but I think my just genuine reaction. In fact, when I have problems with the recording or with a video, I just can't stand that because then I lose everything. It's not spontaneous anymore. I have to redo the whole thing, and it's not going to be as good as the first one. Maybe there'll be more details because I reflect again what I can say, but there isn't that enthusiasm, which I think, which I like. I like at least to communicate.
I think we've had to do that like one time because we like deleted the video or something, and it's just the worst. It really is. It's the worst to re-record a video. You're like,
It
I've
is.
already done this. I'm already past this now. Like my life has moved past this thought, and now
Yeah, yeah. You don't know whether you try to do it again or do something completely different. It gets kind of weird there, right?
it does.
Yeah,
Reasonable.
yeah. So Guido, you've been building your channel. You have like I want waves like music focus videos, and then go back to hi-fi, and then go back to the theme. But this you go really deep into things. I remember your cable videos, all of that, and that helped me a lot to to go there. Is there any? Do you go about your feeling? Oh, now I'm into music. Now I'm going to make some music videos. Do you have planned, or it's whatever comes to your mind? How does it work?
I like this question a lot. Thank you. Yeah, because I mean, in contrast with how people organize their channels, you usually follow that route. Okay. If you change, you're losing people. I mean, every time I go out a little bit, like when I do interviews, I know automatically that first of all, I have to take out the word interview. Otherwise, nobody's going to watch. Then I have to
Ah.
put something a little more fun inside because this is just for the interviews, or simply just when I want to talk about something, not always presenting stuff, things.
Mhm.
I just it's an urge. I like to talk about this from different points of view. But if you do that, sometimes you're missing the public, that specific person that subscribed because he was thinking that he was going to get more of that. It will come eventually back in, but it will take like 2 or 3 videos. That's why I always say I'm not a reviewer. I am not a reviewer. Absolutely. Every once in a while, I have a piece of gear. I like to talk about it. A lot of times it's old, out of production, or vintage. That's already making more sense. But then I go and talk about I don't know, a tape, a record, or what's happening in the industry. I like to have watch channels like that with a little bit of everything, almost like a magazine, not always the same thing. But YouTube doesn't work that way, actually. So you get rewarded if you're constant and go very much in depth on your specific topic. But I don't want to do that. I would probably be a much upper high in terms of subscribers and things like that if I only did the same thing. But it would be too tedious for me. I must admit.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we're a smaller channel. We've been doing this for a couple of years now, but like we know what actually is going to do well, versus not do that well. Like for jazz and records, if you do a Tone Poet video, like it's going to get tons of views, right? Even if it's like the goofiest tangentially related thing, right, to Tone Poets, or whatever. So I appreciate that. So your cable videos were like the big breakthrough?
In the
Like
beginning,
have you had kind of multiple steps on getting to where you're at with your YouTube channel? Or is it
what
just
do you mean?
So is it like your subscribers are just slowly built over time, or is there like been some milestones where it just kind of went crazy?
Well, this starting point with the first video on cables, yes, because from
Mhm.
0 we went to a few hundreds in just a few weeks, we could say. And it's absolutely 0 up until then for at least 3 or 4 months, which I believe it's probably normal. I mean,
Mhm.
nothing incredible, but I was just expecting a little something, a little reaction. But apart from that, yeah, it was kind of homogeneous. I mean, at that point, clearly there are, when you find specific videos, you really have those up and downs. If you like, for example, my last video on the MoFi gold CDs, that all of a sudden just grew enormously and brought a lot of subscribers. But once again, that group is hoping to find more content on CDs. In the next
Yeah.
video, it's not going to be on CDs. And sometimes, in fact, I see the numbers go back down. They unsubscribe, which I understand perfectly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the curve is pretty homogeneous. A few spikes, but not that much in the end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So just to play around with this, the gold CD idea, was this just something that you were, I mean, of course you're interested in it, but is this where your kind of collecting was going towards? You maybe purchased a few new ones and you wanted to kind of share out your research and your experience with it. Is that kind of the trajectory of how you decide the content, or is this something that was planned like a while ago and you knew that this could be an opportunity?
You guys make excellent questions. Thank you. I like them a lot, really. Yes, because it's an intelligent question. Because someone may think that I plan on looking what's the trend. Okay, sometimes you're probably doing that. Why not? I mean, if it collimates with your interest, no problem. But CDs, for example, I wanted to explore that part of MoFi. I always wanted to dive a little more deeper. I had like 2 or 3, but I had a sensation. So I said, let's do a video, but I want to have benefits for my own self. So I'm going to buy. I went on eBay and patiently, I mean, months, it took months to get them all because it takes time, and then listen to them, do all the rips, the testing. I mean, it's very time consuming, but it's fun. I mean, I don't consider it a job in the end. I mean, it's something I do like. But yes, it's probably a mix. But in terms of my interest and what may be of interest of my public, let's call it like that. But very, very rarely. I mean, I wanted to jump in, for example, on the MoFi scandal, or however you want to call it.
Right.
I think I was called in to say something about that. I mean, but not to have more views. I mean, it's something that I felt that I needed to do that. So in that terms, we could say I was following a trend, but I'm not trying to look all the analytics to see what is actually people searching for, because there are those possibilities, as you know, in the analytics of YouTube. They're fantastic if you want. But I just prefer to follow, my interest in that specific period. For example, I got my new CD player. I got that fantastic DAC. So I was more lean towards digital in that phase. And I was also rediscovering AAD CDs, the ones with the mixing and possibly also mastering recording and mixing in analog. So I just felt that it was something I could talk about. Clearly, if I put out a video and not that many people are watching it, I'm going to have to shut it down. For example, I wanted to start a series on microphones. I did only one episode on this microphone here, but I have a collection. Guys, the video still didn't reach 2,000 views because that's a completely different segment, different segment. That's recording. People of my channel don't care a shit about that. So I had to stop it, but I would love to go more in depth there. But if I have to do all that work, take away content from other topics, it doesn't make sense, unfortunately. Maybe once in a while I'll do another one just for myself and have fun doing it. But it's not something that the people who are watching me are interested in. It's the other side.
So Guido, question I have too, on YouTube, right? If you think about things back in the day, it would be like, as you said, magazines. I still read magazines. You have like editors, you write letters, it's more formal and conceptual things. But now with YouTube, anybody can have a channel and start chatting about it. So at the same time, we have a lot of diversity, but at the same time, you have to be aware of the quality, the intentions of people doing it, and everything. How do you see, putting into context the hi-fi in YouTube compared to back in the day? How do you think that has benefited or not benefited from being on YouTube, this type of discussion?
You mean for people who are interested
for the
in
public
this
in general, yes. Because it can be very informative if you go to the right channel, but you can be just buying crap if you just watch other things.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm the first one who claims and makes it very, very clear. I am not a professional. I'm not an engineer. This is just my passion. I have experience. I'm sharing it with you. But YouTube, clearly, it's not a peer-reviewed scientific publication. You can't rely on specific things just watching videos, because sometimes I go more in depth on, I don't know, the technology of tubes, of very complex stuff about them, about cables, and I don't know, all the different crazy parts of tape, magnetic tape. It's very complicated, which I don't even understand fully. I'm the first one to admit it. So I'm sure there are dozens of mistakes in my videos, and the same thing is happening elsewhere, clearly, I would say in the majority of videos. In fact, a lot of channels which are a little more, let's say, well, they don't want to risk too much. They just talk about their opinions about things, which is correct. I mean, that's actually a safe place, and it makes sense. I want to try to do a little more, and in fact, sometimes I just made some big mistakes, and I had to apologize. It happened.
Yeah.
I don't have big examples in my mind, but it does happen. Clearly, when you want to step out. I try to do research, and it's not that I invent stuff, but sometimes you just got things wrong, and you communicated in the wrong way. Maybe sometimes, like all the digital delay aspect, which I think it's shocking. It's incredible. I don't know if you guys have seen anything about it, if you know what that is. Because
is that the tape head? The tape head delay?
Yeah. I mean, it's something that still, when I think about it, it's completely shocking to know that even what should be AAE records, meaning they were 100% analog, of the days, late 70s, 80s, were not, because they were using a digital delay to make records. And I mean, that was completely misunderstood by Michael Fremer, who attacked me, and he thought that I was also referring to modern labels like Analog Productions, or I don't know, all the other great ones, but which do have clearly a special machine with an analog extra head. What Mike was saying. So absolutely. So sometimes it wasn't a true mistake, but the communication wasn't correct. And that bunch of people that went past there maybe got a wrong idea, and they're never going to come back, maybe. So that's also a problem with content on YouTube, because maybe you're not coming back. Oh, that's another example where I did make some mistakes. I did a video on injection molding for records, because there's this guy in Holland who is
I saw that.
Incredible stuff he's doing to his own activity to do records without vinyl, obtaining great results. But I made a few mistakes, because clearly I just gathered some information. I didn't contacted him, and that went on it contained some mistakes, that video. I did another one immediately with him, interviewing him, but it had a fraction of the visualizations. So people who watched that first video clearly has some mistakes now in their head. These are just examples to say that other channels are probably doing the same, or even sometimes worse, or even sometimes better, clearly. So it's great to have all this information, obviously. I mean, I'm the first one to open YouTube to find something, almost more than Wikipedia, because it just felt better and, I don't know, more entertaining. You understand better certain things, certain topics with a video. People are explaining even complex things, and there are great channels out there. Absolutely. I think it should be really cool if at a certain point we have, for example, somebody that checked these things, maybe an evaluation of somehow, I don't know, maybe you have to pass an exam or something. I don't know. That would be interesting to give a little more authority to a channel when it's dealing with difficult topics. That's just an idea.
No, for sure. No, I think your channel comes across like really send a message. I mean, you're doing a great job. I think it's very, very well put. I just love the comments on hi-fi videos, like, oh, I never listened to it, but I know it's good, or I know it's better. You should have that one, which I don't have, but I know it's better. That kind of thing.
Well, thank you, Felipe.
Very strong opinions from everyone in the audiophile space always. There's no one that has like a moderate opinion about anything, right?
We'll make videos.
truth.
we'll make videos and we'll caveat. We'll say like, this is a limitation, and or this is what we're listening on, and then in the comments, people will still call it out and say like, this analysis is incorrect because of X, Y, Z, and it's like we're just trying to share our experience. We're trying to be aware of what those limitations could be, and be transparent about it, and just have a fun conversation.
Exactly.
And for the most part, I would say 99% of people take it like that, but there's always some comments of people just criticizing, which is fine, whatever. As long as the intent is good, and it's not malice or really trolling behavior, criticism is fine. I mean, that's it's part of the experience on YouTube. So that's totally okay. But we do try, I feel like we try to be responsible and just put our backgrounds, who we are, what we're trying to achieve, because we know that this is, people take this very seriously. So we just want to kind of identify where we're coming from, and that how people. But the thing is, I guess the fear is that when you do that, sometimes it turns people off, because they are looking for authorities. They're not looking for fun conversation, and that's okay. If that's the case, then maybe our channel or whomever's channel isn't the right place for them, and that's okay too. But yeah, you do risk but I guess the thing is we can't pretend to be authorities on certain things when we're not. So we're just very sensitive to that, and we try to explain our backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, that's an excellent approach, I think. I don't know if you guys reply to these comments or just
the crappy ones. I usually reply to the crappier ones just because they piss me off. So
yeah, Chris is the muscle.
I'm the same.
Especially if they don't make sense, or they just seem mean for no reason. There's always that one guy that's just Felipe's got a really nice, setup, right? And some guy will be like, well, if you didn't play this on $1 million system, you really haven't heard the record. And we're just like, okay, dude, what are you even talking about? Someone attacked me the other day when we did a review on Jerome. I think it was Jerome Saba's new record, which is a great record. He's like, this dude's sitting there with the techniques that you could have got for $10 in a garage sale, and he's talking about how a record sounds. And it's just yes, you can improve things, and which your channel is obviously about a lot, right? You can improve things with cables, with better gear, with that. But if a record sounds like crap, it's going to sound like crap on a $400 turntable, and it's going to sound like crap on a $10,000 turntable, right?
Of course.
So how do you deal with the trolling behavior of people that some folks just can't seem to not do,
Well, I try to keep every single comment unless they start to offend people. They can offend me. I accept that. Even that. A lot of people say don't, but I mean, if it's not something horrible, terrible, clearly, but then no problem. When they start to offend other people inside, then I ban them. It's rare, but it happens, because that's intolerable. I mean, we're here to have fun, mainly everyone, to exchange information. So there's no reason, and a lot of people just like to do that because there's no filter. You just have to grab your keyboard and start writing shit and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's terrible, and I get that a lot, loads of it, because clearly I'm touching topics that are not opinions. I mean, should be facts, and I'm sure I do sometimes make a lot of mistakes. But I would say 70-80% of the comments where they say I'm making a mistake, when I try to understand what they're saying, and then maybe I do other research, because I absolutely approach this in a humble way. I say, maybe I'd said this wrong. Maybe, I have to do further research. It's not correct. So I do more research. And in the end, actually, I was right, and I just have to reply and explain things. A lot of people say, forget it, just let it go. Who cares? I don't know. It's part also of the channel philosophy. As I said, it's a dialogue. So I do want to reply, the good and the bad, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we only get rid of people if they're offensive, generally.
Yeah, criticism is fine. That's not an issue. You can have a different opinion. It's really just the tone, and then if there's malice.
Exactly.
Some people really just like to attack people. So
Exactly. Yes.
That's not tolerated. But that we don't really. I mean, that's very few comments that get to that level.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're fortunate, but we're also smaller, so our reach. We have, I think, our just
You'll
to kind
grow
of
fast. You'll grow fast. You'll see. I mean, there aren't that many
Well-
channels like you guys, so it's an excellent gap you're filling in. And
and
the bigger you'll get, the more crapola is going to fall on
That's
you
true.
guys.
That's true.
Well, it is interesting when you mention that the topics based on what people have subscribed to your channel and what their expectations are,
Mm.
because a lot of people subscribe to us because they're record collectors. And we did a live stream last night, and Chris was showing like a bunch of CDs that he got. And not that this is it's not serious at all. There's a lot of fun here, but like there are people in the comments that are like ribbing Chris for like getting into CDs and showing CDs. And it's like even a simple little format change can like get people excited. So when we do like interviews with new artists, and it's just it's like we're catering to different segments of our subscriber base. But we right now I think most people are record collectors, are interested in hearing us talk about records specifically.
Yeah.
And when do you shift like that? Is it something received as a positive? You like it?
Well, in terms of engagement, it's funny because like we'll have lower views, but the people that watch longer, and then they comment more. So it's like it's a smaller segment, but it like they're more passionate about that type of content. Specifically, really the interviews we have with recent jazz artists. Those are what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
So, but I know
Nice.
like I'm sure Felipe would like to get more into the gear side of things. And we definitely, want to grow a little bit, but like Chris said, we do know kind of what the audience expectation is and what they're looking for, and we love talking about that stuff. So it's not a problem, but
For sure. So now, Guido, just diving back to the hi-fi, since Mike mentioned hi-fi now. I've been following your journey on turntables and amplifiers and everything. So before I talk a little bit about your journey, where you are right now, because I noticed that most of the channels that I watch in hi-fi, they're from Europe, not from the US. I think there's a different tone and approach that I feel. I really like. I'm gonna mention. I really love Tarun's channel. Dark
British
Horse is
audiophile.
really well produced. And I think you have a more like cool attitude towards things. Not the Americans are sometimes you don't even know how that much sponsor they are, how spontaneous they are. You guys, I think the European channel seems to be more like straight.
Well, that's interesting. Cool.
To the cut. That's how I feel. My first question is if you feel like that. Have you ever thought about that? And then about what's your gear now? How have you been approaching? Are you more into tapes now or back to vinyl? How are things going?
Well, actually, no, I haven't thought about this in these terms. Probably also because I'm completely split in two. I'm half American, but I live and do everything in Italy. So, in fact, a lot of people think that I'm in the US and I am an American. In fact, they criticize me a lot, turning back a sec on criticism when I mispronounce names, especially names because I butcher them, because I grew up hearing names, which is something you can't easily find on internet. How you pronounce names, you can find grammar, but names is a little difficult. So they just kill me there whenever I do something wrong. But apart from that, no, I actually I usually go on. I'm trying to think now, make my mind up on this. I think I'm following more US channels in the end. Yes, except maybe for like Techmoan or things like that, but maybe a 50%, 60-40%, let's say, something like that. So no, but that's interesting. I mean, that you're finding a fil rouge between the European channels. Going to gear, haha. Well, that's something. It's difficult because, as you can imagine, it's something in constant evolution. I mean, it's an illness. It's a sickness. I mean, you change constantly because you want to explore. I mean, that's the main reason. Not necessarily better, but test that particular component that has a peculiar feature for some reason, and it's just so damn interesting to explore that, especially vintage. I must admit that the old stuff has a lot of appeal. I just did my last video was on this, where I explain how we are completely changing the way we listen, not only from a gear point of view, but how we just conceive hi-fi in general. But going back to your question, otherwise I'm not going to answer. Well, I'm just really getting big now on tubes, especially amplifiers. I'm really exploring them a lot, even though I did found this VFET amplifier solid state that just made me go crazy. I loved it so much. So I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm not having some kind of a selective approach, a bias towards this. I don't think a specific technology has to be the best. Absolutely. So I'm glad that sometimes I find things and I say, well, this is better than what I was expecting. Absolutely. So that's always on the top of my mind now. I try really to explore every type of component with tubes in my mind, but not necessarily. For example, I finally refurbished completely my Telefunken M15 reel-to-reel, broadcast German reel-to-reel. Fantastic. That is all solid state. That is all solid state, and the sound of it is just incredible.
Wow.
Incredible. Until you bring everything back to spec, unfortunately, it's very difficult because you have to find a good technician. Even vintage stuff, you're never really hearing the true sound until you bring it back up to spec, obviously. And when you do, I mean, in most cases, it's revealing, really. I mean, because I've also heard more modern things by Studer and things like that, which are very good, but the preamps inside aren't. In fact, the American stuff is much better from that point of view, the preamplifiers and ampics and things like that. So you have to find, and it's difficult, completely difficult to find stuff in Italy or in Europe by ampics, practically impossible. And when it's available, it costs 3 or 4 times the cost it is in the US. So we have to stick more with the EU type of technology, even though it's very good. But I would like to explore, because experimenting, once again, is one of my main motivations. So that I would love to change speakers more frequently, but for the joy of my wife, I try to limit that. It's kind of difficult. I mean, you can't. I would really love to explore more and more speakers. That's one of my big wannabes, but it's just impossible. It takes too much space, time, money. So unfortunately, there I'm kind of limited in my experience. I must admit that. What else? I'm happy from a digital point of view. I found this T+A DAC, which is just amazing. I did this video where I compared different CD transports and players, and the sound was so good from even a crappy $20 compared to a $2,000 or $3,000 or $10,000 machine, because that DAC does the magic. It's reclocking everything. And because I do like digital, a lot of people think, why? It's an analog channel. No, I love digital. The only problem with digital is that a lot of times it's done, actually 90% of times it's done wrong. It's compressed, over compressed. It's just terrible, unfortunately, what they're doing on digital media and in general with music today. But that's a different story. I'm talking too much.
No, you're not. That makes sense.
No, that's great.
One of the things that kind of brings up for me is, like, we were saying, I bought a bunch of CDs last weekend. I've had a CD player for decades, obviously, but I haven't really been into it. But I bought a bunch of jazz CDs, and I haven't experienced that, right? Like, the compression wars and the loudness wars and all that. I don't know if that ever really affected jazz. It seems like there's some really, really good engineers, like James Barber, mine, as an excellent recording engineer that can do it on vinyl, can do it on CD, and they sound really good.
Absolutely, indeed. AAD CDs, or just in general, the early CDs, and clearly also the modern, but mainly
Mhm.
the old ones, the jazz ones, and classical music, but mainly
Yeah.
jazz. I think they're fantastic. That segment is very well produced, fortunately. Yes,
Yeah.
I love old jazz records on CD, albums on CD. Indeed.
From the 80s and 90s and 2000s, it was never on vinyl and probably never will be, right?
Also,
So I mean, you obviously, what formats do you go to? Like, what are you listening to? Vinyl, tape, CD. Like, what is you have like a split right now of kind of what you're focusing on?
well, I would say mainly vinyl. I mean, for a
Hmm.
long, the majority of my listening sessions is dedicated to vinyl. I have mainly vinyl, absolutely, but I do have a lot of CDs, mainly coming from the 90s when I, vinyl
Hmm.
was practically dead in that period of time when I was young. So I got a lot of CDs in that 90s and early 2000s when I was growing up mainly. And so those are always following me. I like to find those jazz CDs in the record shops, thrift stores, or fairs and things like that. Love to do that. Also because I mean the quality is almost always good. I mean with records you never know what's going to happen when you get home, but more CDs if it's not completely scratched, people didn't play chess or something on them. It's
Hmm.
they sound excellent. And I always go back to CD. Actually, I have a special relationship, we could say. For example, I like to start to test. This is something I never said. Actually, I like to start testing equipment with digital. I don't know
Hmm.
why. It's just an approach I feel like doing. Maybe because it's at least the least important for me, but at the same time reliable because there
Hmm.
aren't too many variables. I don't have to worry that maybe the phono preamp has some problems. The tubes are wearing out. The pickup is wearing out or things like that. I don't know. It's just a peace of mind that I like to start off there. But then I enjoy clearly more vinyl and obviously tape. I mean, it's my logo. Tape is the best sounding media for me, absolutely, compared to everything else. The only problem is that there's limited access to it. It's just too darn expensive. We're talking about master tapes.
Mhm.
Uh, Pre-recorded cassettes are very bad. Never been good. Just a bunch of it out of the vast majority. At least I don't like them at all. So when you record your own music on cassettes, yeah, absolutely. For example, that's what I do with Kobus or things like that. I like to put digital on cassettes,
Hmm.
especially when I don't find specific albums, and that's the only way I'm going to have it because I want a physical support. I'm sorry, I just
Hmm.
can't stand streaming. I use streaming to go to work. I like to do that on the bus and things like that. That's clearly easy. I'm not going to bring a turntable on the bus. But apart from that, it's just I leave it there.
Right.
And it's not a preconception. I just see how I react. For example, I just can't listen to jazz streamed. I don't know why. It's just unbearable. It has to be of high quality. I want to hear the instruments, the
There can
plucking,
be a
the movements.
yeah, there can be a notable difference. I've experienced where I'll stream something and it doesn't connect with me, and then I get the record of it, and it changes everything. Um,
Exactly.
just hearing it at that high fidelity level, it just changes it. So I totally get that. When you're, and I'm sure there's not like a clear, single answer, but when you are kind of testing things and you're pulling out a digital source, a CD or something, in terms of genres, are you sticking with things like classical and jazz to hear range, or is it pretty much whatever you're interested in hearing at the
Mm.
moment?
Well, the vast majority is jazz. It's just
Okay.
I find all my answers in that type of music. Uh, Different types. I mean, classical jazz, but also I love fusion jazz. I mean, jazz of the 70s is just something fantastic. Also, because the recording techniques and mixing was so good when you find the good ones, clearly. Like, that's also why I just I just completely adore Japanese jazz, also because the recording is so good. And they're good also playing. I mean, the artists are good.
Absolutely.
So that's mainly, but I mean, I also love that I was immersed in rock, as I said before, rock, pop. So I adore Pink Floyd. I adore all the rock bands, Jethro Tull, Led Zeppelin. I mean, that's why I also do a video every year of that specific year in the 70s, meaning 50 years ago. For example, I still have to do it. The 1974 best rock albums. And because it's every year is going to be the 50th anniversary from now on until we pass in the next decade.
Yeah.
Clearly, then I'll pass to the 80s at that point.
Nice. That's fun.
So I love rock. I mean, that's where I was born. My passion for music starts there. Absolutely. Classical music, okay, I would love to be a classical buff. I would really want to be one, but I'm not. I do not enjoy symphonic music. I like chamber music. I like baroque music where there are just a few instruments.
Yeah.
Practically an early form of jazz, we could say, practically.
Yeah.
Because I can hear the instruments. I mean, that wall of sound of symphonic music is just not that much engaging for me. There are a few records, obviously, that I do enjoy. But if you look at my collection, it's like 10%.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm getting into classical more and more, and exactly the same thing. The smaller group stuff, I gravitate towards more because I feel like it's more relatable to me, and I can differentiate the instrumentation better, even though it still can be challenging. So I totally get that.
I think you need a guidance. I mean, for that, because, for example, if you're interested in one type of opera, one type of work of creation, you don't know which conductor, you don't know which executor. I mean, already there, it's kind of daunting. If instead you have somebody that tells, look, go and look for that recording of that year with that director, with that pianist, or whatever it is, it's different. It's different, and you get passionate about it. I don't have that figure. There are excellent YouTube channels, actually. I don't have the patience probably to watch them in depth, but I should, because I'm sure that if someone initiates me to that, creates a spark, I would follow that. Absolutely. Because when you know the story...
I'm going to send you an email. I'm going to follow up with you and send you an email with some YouTube videos.
Okay,
we have good friends of the channel who are dedicated classical channels, and they've been great guides for myself. So I'll share those with you. Yeah,
I want to mention Poetry and Plastic. I mean, he's a great guy, and he does incredible videos, and he's very young. I love that contrast, because you would expect a 70-year-old guy. Instead, he's very young, and he knows everything about classical music, and he likes rock and jazz. He likes everything.
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, okay, so now on the jazz, I was thinking, since you're in Italy, and Italy has amazing, great labels like Red Recordings, like Horo Jazz, which is one of the first ones, and also we know, as like all of us here, you love Japanese jazz. You have actually some videos actually going in Japan and buying records.
Yes.
So I like to know first if you're into the Italian labels, that early jazz, especially Horo, which I think is so important, and some other ones, Soul Note, and Japanese jazz. I think that's one of the greatest things.
Well, good question, because as we say, a lot of times in Italy or in Latin, nemo profeta in patria, like the prophet is never valued in his own country, no? Meaning that, no, I actually don't follow that much jazz in Italy. You probably are much more expert than me. I like a few artists a lot, but it's not something I follow. Also, probably because I'm just completely I fell in love with American jazz, Japanese jazz, and Brazilian bossa nova. I mean, you really have to give me some advice there, because I have 2 or 3 artists like Luis Bonfa just completely revolutionized my concept of Brazilian music. It's something incredible what he can do and what he could communicate.
Mhm.
Brazilian music is something incredible, and I want to do a video in Brazil where I tour and go in places sooner one day, hopefully, because it's a magic place where dedicated to music. But let's try to mention someone of in Italy, for example, Enrico Rava, Paolo Fresu, Stefano, what's his name? Stefano Di Battista, or other more fusion types, Afrobeat like Voodoo Sound. I mean, there are a few, but compared to foreign jazz, no, not that much actually. I'm sorry.
Speaking of Enrico Rava, have you ever heard this?
Aha.
This is let me
No,
Yeah,
I
I got
haven't.
you.
Yeah,
Nice.
okay. Oh, it's amazing. So this was this is Montreux Diary A, I think it's called. But there's two of these that he did in Montreux, and this one's all Miles Davis
Live.
Yeah, it's live. Yeah,
Ooh,
and so he
nice.
does like a 20-minute version of when the lights are low. He does a really cool version of Milestones. It's like 17 minutes long. I've been getting into him really heavily lately, so yeah, he's amazing. And that CD sounds really good.
Well, I see the personnel also, all stars
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Yeah, it's all Italian people, which is cool. So
Nice.
You know.
Even Roberto Gatto.
Mhm. Yeah.
and he's got some records on ECM that I've really been getting into as well.
That's cool.
So anyway,
Yeah.
I don't like ECM.
that's fine. I mean,
That's okay.
I think
I'm
with
sorry.
ECM, with
I
ECM
tried.
For me, yeah, it depends on the record. Like it's
I'm sure.
the
I'm
overall
sure.
ECM aesthetic. I'm not necessarily into all that much, but there's certain records that are really good.
I'm sure. I mean,
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
the famous concert by Jan, I forget his name,
Oh,
the Cone concert.
Oh,
Yeah.
Keith Jarrett.
Oh, Keith Jarrett. Yeah.
I mean, that's a classic, and it is very interesting. But I don't know that it's such a precise, clean, almost aseptic sound that
Mhm.
it's not engaging for me. But I know that's me. So
No,
it's
it's
just
totally fair.
that
Yeah.
German rigor, which it's not buying me. But if you have some suggestions, please send them over because they are good. I have to admit this, great recordings. I mean, from a technical point of view.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would
Yes.
enjoy some recommendations. Absolutely.
For sure.
Thanks.
And just following up on the Japanese stuff, because you have videos like recommending Three Blind Mice records, how to get cheap records from Japan through Amazon. I mean, you're really into that. You're really passionate. So, how did you get into Japanese, and what do you like about it?
Well, how? That's interesting. I don't know exactly how. I just probably I always seen these three blind mice records, the Tsuyoshi Yamamoto trio. I mean the famous Misty and things like that, and it was very difficult to find. In fact, I remember that in the 90s, I finally managed to put my hands on XRCD, where it was just a sampler of different records, different songs, tracks coming from different records of Three Blind Mice, but it was impossible to find anything in Italy at that point. So that's probably what triggered me to search. And finally, when things got, when I had a little more economy in my hands and I could try to find with the internet, buy things abroad, I really fell in love with this whole branch. I mean, because after the Americans, I mean, I think they're right after the technical level, and from a recording level, in most cases they surpass, I think at least, American recordings. Maybe sometimes American recordings are not that precise in detail. They have a little more warmth and engagement. That's the advantage. Let's say the positive part of American recordings. If I have to generalize clearly, otherwise, I'm sure they're ultra detailed. Also, recordings from the American side. I'm talking about the past, clearly, mainly the 50s, 60s, and 70s. While instead in Japan, every single album by King Records, Venus, Trio, or even the ones earlier, what was the name? Tact Records, for example, they're just incredible. The Sonics is outstanding. It's just unbelievable. Plus, you find these incredible jazz artists because they just adore jazz more than, I don't know, more than American themselves. Maybe they're just crazy for jazz.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and still today, when as you, Felipe noted, I did that tour in Japan. I mean, it's just in the air everywhere. Those little cafes where they all have those hi-fi sets, or the clubs filled with little clubs playing all the time. It's just something of their culture, even though it's completely detached from their culture. It's not Japanese at all. It became at a certain point, we could say, but clearly it's imported. And they're doing an incredible job, just like whiskeys. I don't know if you guys are into whiskeys.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Japanese whiskeys are of another world, just as good as the Scottish, and sometimes even better.
Well, it seems to me like the Japanese are very proficient at finding something that's good and then just taking it to the next level, right? And
Yep.
and
You can apply to multiple things. Yes.
yeah, absolutely. And I really enjoy like the 70s jazz fusion stuff from Japan. It's outstanding, a lot of it.
Indeed. Amazing sounds. I just love
Mhm.
that. In fact, it's sad that America forgot almost its jazz heritage. I mean, if there wasn't
100%.
CTI or labels like that in the 70s, we would have lost everything. In fact, in the 80s, the poor guys were not recording almost anymore. They had to go abroad. It's so sad. I don't know. I don't know really why that happened. Just probably because they weren't selling. Very simply, they weren't selling anymore. But in Japan, they were, even in the 80s. So.
Well, there's a couple of factors. I mean, from the 50s and 60s, a lot of it was racism in America, and that's why they went to Europe, because they're going to be treated like human beings there. And the audience was in Europe. I mean, jazz was popular music here in the 40s, right? It was the popular music like in the 30s and 40s.
Absolutely,
and then
yes.
And soul and R&B kind of took over the audience. So I think those are the two big factors of why America stopped listening to jazz.
Yeah. It's quite interesting too. When I was reading Francis Pauldrow's book on Bud Powell, at an early chapters he discusses that, and he says probably one of the things that matters in Europe, people got like more stick to the traditional roots of jazz. So they're always like referencing that, and in America it's very like market driven. Whatever the market needs, they're gonna do it. They're not like following their instincts necessarily most of the times, which I found quite interesting as well.
True.
Yeah.
And obviously those are generalizations too, because there's always been jazz in America, and there is to this day. It never died. It just the audience went to almost nothing.
Changed.
It was very niche. I think that's why our channel, I mean, we're very excited. We just hit 4,000 subscribers like a couple of weeks ago, and that's a lot for us. But we have a very niche audience. We feel like, because we only talk about jazz, and it doesn't cross over as much into like channels that talk about all kinds of music. So
it's tough. That's absolutely. So in fact, as I said, congratulations, guys, because it's a very narrow niche. But there isn't that many other channels. Actually, I've tried to look. I didn't find any actually. So,
there's definitely some.
There is something. Okay, well, it's not easy to find. You're more easy to find. That you're already winning there.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
I did want to ask just a general question around vinyl reissue series. There are a number of great companies: Impex, Analog Productions, Electric Recording Company. The list goes on. What is, I don't know, just to kind of set you up with this question just broadly, what's your approach to collecting those, or do you not collect those? Do you have preferences, and have you had experiences with those?
Yes, indeed, absolutely. I try to, since we're living in this magical moment where they are finally reissuing jazz, because I mean, every once in a while I have to pinch myself, because I mean, all of a sudden they're reissuing practically the whole catalog of Blue Note and many others. It's just a fantastic moment to be around at a decent price, because when I started to get into jazz, it was impossible to get close to the originals. They're just too rare and too expensive. And in many cases, the condition wasn't that good. So I have to spend so much, and then I also have a lot of noise. No. But finally, we are having this amazing resurgence also in the genre, not only in the medium, we could say. So I've explored all these, and I like them a lot. I think ERC is a little too pretentious. I mean, the cost is a little elevated there. In any case,
Yeah.
I understand they make one every like 1 or 2 months, but I mean, well, let's
Yeah.
skip this. But I do love instead what, for example, well, obviously analog productions, clearly, especially for you guys in the US, because I was thinking about prices here in Italy. Unfortunately, we have the import taxes, so it's almost a luxury product. But in America, if I don't go wrong, I see like $35, which is a lot. But normal new releases of other genres are more or less that price. So I think you're pretty lucky, even because they're made so well. The pressings are made so well. And
Yeah, our friends overseas, have said, like, even in Canada, the price of like one of those UHQRs is like double. It's just incredibly expensive.
Yeah. I mean, in Brazil, Tom Poets, if you go on Brazil Amazon, can easily get like $200.
Jeez.
Wow.
Yeah.
no, we don't reach that, but I've seen like €70 for the Tone Poets. That's normal.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, Music Matters, when they were doing stuff, it had that impact, that cost in the US. And in fact, and they had great success. I mean, they were one of the first to do those incredible reissues. But the industry's demonstrated that you can do that with a fraction of a price, because the Tone Poets, or even just the classic series by Blue Note, are much more accessible. Finally, I mean, yeah, we all love tip-on jackets and luxury liner notes or whatever it's inside, but the record is the main thing. So I'm just happy we had access to that. In Europe, there isn't that much. Speaker's Corner. What else? Not that much, unfortunately, on our side.
What's wild too is most of the stuff gets pressed in Europe. Or not most, but like all the Blue Note classic stuff's pressed in Germany. Jeezy's over there. So a lot of the stuff that you would have to re-import to Europe and pay extra for came from there to begin with, which is kind of weird.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know how to do that actually.
Oh, we have Craig in UK, right? Craig, Analog October. Have you heard of him, Guido?
I don't think so, no.
It's called Analog October Records. He's in the UK, and he's doing things at a really high level. You should check him out.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah, we definitely explore the reissues and agree with pretty much your sentiment around all of it, including the classic series. Like, yes, like it's not the premium packaging, but ultimately, like, you get a great record. And just hearing your kind of perspective of like how much things cost outside the United States, classic series being exported, it probably keeps those prices low for global audiences as well. So I think they're doing a great job, and they have a different goal and remit. They're trying to do something a little different than Tone Poet and Music Matter. So I think it's absolutely worthy to have those out at a good price.
Even Craft Records, I love their project. Great prices, great products, fantastic job. I just want to spend a few words on these reissues, because I think it's interesting how, and in fact I underlined this several times, that we are living this magical moment also of reissues, because in the past they had to master a little more with the axe, cutting off a lot of frequencies, because they were scared that people weren't going to be able to replay these correctly, play back these records, especially in the 50s. I said this also with Kevin Gray, and we are having top-notch products. Yes, it's true that the analog tapes are deteriorating, and we're probably having a little less dynamics. That's true. I mean, we're losing a little bit of dBs every 10 or 15 years. So the originals are always going to have a little more dynamics, where the frequency, the spectrum is preserved. But the mastering was harsh and not so good. So what we are having today is special. Absolutely.
So, in talking about tapes as an archival thing, right? So they're not going to be around forever. I mean, at some point, like in 50 years, they're not going to be making records from the original master tapes and stuff. And as you said, digital can be done at a really high level. So what do you think, based on what you know, what you feel should be like the ideal way, like the highest DSD possible, and archive them? What do you think?
Well, yeah. Even though it makes me a little, it's destabilizing to think that digital gets always better, at least in terms of sampling frequencies and resolution and bits, each couple of years. So you always have this frustration that they just done the duplication, the conversion to digital, but after 20 years, you know that there's going to be much better technology, and that tape has already passed. I mean, it was always already converted, and maybe it got ruined, and maybe it's not the optimal idea to redo the whole process again for all of the tapes. So I just think about that. It's very frustrating. But yes, I mean, DSD is probably the best. I mean, it was conceived actually for archival purposes in the beginning, and it is probably the most neutral and high resolution of all. So that's if done not at SACD level, but at a much higher frequencies like 15, 512 or things like that, extreme high frequency, sampling frequency, and that's probably the best for the future. But once again, in 20 years, it's going to be obsolete. It's not going to be that good. So, well, instead, we know that tape
but
is
at this
already
point,
at the maximum.
That's true. But at this point, are you going to be able to hear the difference, even if it improves in 20 years? Like, do you think we've reached like the limit of human hearing on the quality?
I don't know if you want to go in that topic.
I don't mean like across the whole thing. Like specifically about the recording digitally. Like, is it? I mean, sure, there'll be improvements, but will it sound better?
No, that's a good point. That's a good point because actually, I mean, the more complex is the music, the more resolution you need. But if it's simple music, we're already, the headroom is already enormous. Absolutely, I agree. We all the information is there. Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's not going to change dramatically in 50 years. There's not going to be another record, clearly. So that's true. That's true.
Cool.
All right. So I know we've been going for an hour. So everyone watching, thanks for hanging in there. This was a really fun conversation. Guido, I just wanted to ask if there's anything on your channel you wanted to give a heads up to the viewers to watch out for, or if you have any other things you wanted to share.
I mean, if you're interested in the topics we mentioned, in most cases, I did a video. If you want, you're free to explore the channel. So that's about it. I mean, you guys are already covering the jazz topic. So I think this is the right place to stay. Absolutely.
Chris, Felipe, any final questions or comments?
No, I think I truly appreciate your accepting Guido talking to us today. It was a lot of fun. We had a great time, and I hope we can do this again.
Me too. Me too. Thank you so much, guys. And I wish you all the best for your channel, really. Congratulations.
Oh, you too, man. Thanks for joining us. This was fun.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Guido. Hopefully we'll do this again down the line. This was just a fun chat. So it's always great to be able to bring people on and just have a fun conversation. Please share this. Check out, if you don't sub up to Anna Dialogue, we'll drop a link to that channel in the description so you can check it out. And thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.